Air India has confirmed that all but one of the 242 people aboard Flight 171 have died following the crash in the western Indian state of Gujarat. The plane bound for London Gatwick crashed this morning shortly after takeoff in the city of Ahmedabad, hitting a hostel for trainee doctors. Of those on board the Boeing Dreamliner 787, 53 were British nationals. Miraculously, one passenger, a British man, has survived and was able to walk away. We'll hear from his family tonight. The flight took off at 1:40 p.m. local time on a 10-hour flight to Gatwick. It was only 600 feet or so in the air when it came down less than a minute later. The number of victims on the ground is still unknown. What caused it to crash is still unclear. We'll piece together what we know. And tonight we'll hear from our correspondent Yogita Limai, who's at the scene of the crash, and Samira Hussain at the local hospital. First, let's join Yogita at the site of the crash.
Rita, an acrid smell of burning rubber, wood, plastic hangs thick in the air here at the crash site. The buildings that you can see behind me completely charred, and there's a row of those leading right up to the place where the aircraft actually crashed. It's been cordoned off now, but we were there earlier, and literally we were walking through charred pieces of metal along the way. We saw bodies that were being pulled out, parts of rubble that were still smoking, parts of rubble that were still on fire. And we still don't know how many people who were in this densely residential area, populated area, were killed in that crash. But here is how events unfolded today.
It was meant to be a 9-hour journey, a plane carrying hundreds of passengers, hundreds of dreams. But just after takeoff, and in what must have been terrifying moments for those on board, this flight made a frantic mayday call. But when air traffic control responded, silence, followed by a deafening explosion. All of it caught on camera. The plane crashed just outside the airport complex, on buildings used as accommodation by medical students at a government college and hospital. Firefighters and emergency responders were rushed in, tackling the blaze caused by a plane tank full of fuel, not an easy task. Many locals ran in to help. We met one of them later in the day. Raviva Cheta described what he saw.
I heard a loud explosion. Then I went to the spot and saw smoke billowing out. We went in with the emergency response team and helped to pull the bodies out. Everything was charred. It was very difficult and the heat coming from it was intense.
Several hours after the crash, the wreckage was still smoking. Working into the night, rescuers pulled out more dead.
You can see there's a tree that has been upturned and is still smoking here, and behind me literally everything is charred. It's actually quite hard to even talk because the air is still smelling very acrid. It's still full of smoke, and I'm just going to try to walk around and show you the scale of the destruction there behind me. That's where the plane crashed, but literally there's a row of buildings, I've counted 5 or 6 of them that have been completely charred. So the scale of devastation on the ground as well, where the crash occurred, the residential area where the crash occurred, is just massive.
It's still unclear how many residents have died, but Air India has said all passengers were killed except one person. This British national, who was on board the aircraft, miraculously walked out alive. He's being treated in hospital. He's one of more than 50 British nationals who were on board the plane that was also carrying more than 160 Indians and Canadian and Portuguese nationals. For families who had just seen their loved ones off at the airport, a gut-wrenching time. My brother was on the plane, one man cries.
My sister-in-law was going to London. Within an hour, I got news the plane had crashed. I had left for Ahmedabad, then I came back. We don't know anything. We've not been able to enter the hospital.
First, we were forced to roam on the streets for an hour and a half. They kept saying, "Stay here, don't stay here. We have come to see our relatives, not to be sent around in circles."
Only 3 years ago, Air India became a private airline from being India's national carrier, bought by an Indian business giant, the Tata Group. At a time when it was trying to revamp its image to that of a polished, reliable airline, this is a major trial for its leadership.
We are actively working with the authorities on all emergency response efforts. A special team of caregivers from Air India is on their way to Ahmedabad to provide additional support. The investigations will take time, but anything we can do now, we are doing.
The last deadly incident of this scale in India was also of an Air India plane, which crashed in the southern city of Kozhikode 5 years ago. For the carrier, there will be difficult questions to answer. Yogita Lamai, BBC News, Ahmedabad.
This is Vishwashkumar Ramesh. He's the sole survivor of the crash, and he's a 40-year-old businessman from Leicester. And this is where he was sitting in seat 11A near the front of the plane ahead of the wings. Vishwash is now being treated in hospital, but his brother Ajay was also on the plane, and Air India says there were no other survivors. Their family lives in Leicester. Our correspondent Navtej Johal has been talking to them.
The man believed to be the sole survivor. Vishwashkumar Ramesh miraculously appears to walk away from where so many have perished today. He was on the flight from Ahmedabad to London with his brother Ajay. This is him in hospital, where he's now being treated. His remarkable escape has seen him visited in his bed by the Indian Minister of Home Affairs. Back at his family home in Leicester, there was relief from one of his brothers upon seeing those images, but concern remains about Ajay.
Yeah, obviously it feels great seeing him doing well. It's fine, I guess. He's just more worried about the other brother, that's all.
Tell me a little bit about your brothers.
I could just go on and on, I guess, all day. There's no words to describe them, to be honest. Yeah, we were all in shock as soon as we heard what happened. Just utter shock, that's all. Speechless.
Vishwash has a wife and a young son. He was born in India but has lived in the UK for more than 20 years. This boarding pass shows that he was sat in seat 11A. It was a window seat located in the front half of the plane. The family says Ajay was sat next to him. Vishwash told his family he heard a blast from the aircraft.
What has Vishwash told you about what happened to him so far?
Honestly, he himself has no idea, like, how he survived, how he got out of the plane. Well, when he called us, he was just more worried about my other brother, like, just find Ajay, find Ajay. That's all he cares about at the moment.
That's his concern, that's all he wants, is to find your brother.
He doesn't care about himself.
The family has been overwhelmed by support from relatives, neighbours and the wider community, but they all fear the worst for Ajay.
Everyone is upset.
Ajay, how are you doing? This is your cousin who, one of whom seemed...
absolutely upset. Yeah. Just not my cousin, he's also one of my best friends as well. So I'm feeling upset.
The scenes outside this house in Leicester reflect a community in shock and grief. This city is home to thousands of people with links to the state of Gujarat. Here, this tragedy feels close to home. Navtej Johal, BBC News, Leicester.
Well, we're learning more tonight about the people who died in the crash. Among the 52 British people who lost their lives are Javid and Mariam Saeed from London, who died alongside their 2 young children, and Akhil Nanabawa and Hannah Varaji and their daughter Sarah from Gloucester. Prayers have been held tonight for some of the victims. Seema Katecha reports.
Hindu prayers for the dead and the families who will never see their loved ones again. Several members of this congregation knew someone on that fatal flight.
It's a really big loss for us, and we all know the person. I'm from Gujarat, and Ahmedabad is just nearby. Really painful. We pray today.
There are hundreds of thousands of people of Gujarati heritage in the UK, and this flight was coming from Gujarat. But what the worshippers here have made clear is that this prayer is not just for one community, it is for all the communities affected by this crash. The former Chief Minister of Gujarat, Vijay Rupani, was a close friend of the priest here and is believed to have been on the plane.
He gave us encouragement, always support to the Gujarati community. It's very sad news. In one family, you lost one person, but the entire community, you lost so many people. How you can cope? And that's the reason we kept the prayers here.
We are in the airport, just boarding. Goodbye, India.
Others in their prayers, a married couple, Jamie and Fingal Greenlaw Meek, who run a wellness and spiritual retreat in London. This was their last Instagram post before their flight. Also, Javed Ali Syed and Mariam Javed Ali Syed. They were killed along with their 2 children. They lived in West London. Mariam had a job at Harrods and Javed worked at a West London hotel. And Akhil, Nana Bava and Hannah Varaji also died alongside their 4-year-old daughter, Sarah, who's been described as a ray of sunshine. Tonight, a sense of shared grief hangs heavily here as people remember those so tragically lost 4,000 miles away. Seema Katecha, BBC News.
The Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer spoke in Downing Street this evening about the crash and its impact on people here.
Well, the images and news from India is absolutely devastating, and I speak for the entire country in saying our thoughts are with each and every one of those involved. There will be British and Indian families across the land who are absolutely impacted by this, and our thoughts first and foremost are with them. Obviously the investigation is going on. We've dispatched an investigation team that's been deployed. The Foreign Secretary is leading on this, and we'll obviously update as soon as we can.
At least 50 injured medical students are being treated in hospital after the plane crashed into a doctor's hostel in the city. Others were injured at the scene where the plane came down. The bodies of the dead were taken to the civil hospital in Ahmedabad, from where we can join Samira Hussain now. Samira.
Rita, after the horror of the day, it is the grim reckoning of the night. Things are pretty quiet here at the hospital as reality sets in. This is no longer a search for survivors, but the painstaking task of identifying the dead.
The rush to save survivors, the force of the crash, and the explosion that followed. Most didn't stand a chance. Sonal Ben's aunt and uncle were visiting from London.
We dropped her off, and in just a few minutes we got the message to come to Civil Hospital.
Tulsi Bhai Bill saw the flames and ran towards the crash site.
We pulled out 2-3 bodies. We ourselves got very scared. When I was pulling out one of the bodies, a hand came into my hand. We rushed the bodies to the hospital.
Several hours after the crash, people still searching for news, but the rescue operation now officially over.
Everyone on that plane has died, save for just one person. And so now the arduous task of identifying the bodies has begun. So family members have all assembled here, and they're coming to give DNA samples. Because the bodies are so disfigured, the only way to be able to match people is by testing their DNA.
India's Home Minister says the true number of dead will take time.
We will give the official death toll after the DNA is taken and their identities have been confirmed by the authorities.
But even when all the dead have been accounted for, the grieving for them will only have just begun.
Terrible scenes there at the hospital, but establishing the number of people who've died and exactly what happened is going to take time, isn't it?
Absolutely. What the hospital officials are saying here, that it could take 72 hours for that DNA testing to be complete. So family members are just left waiting to hear. And of course, it's not just the people that were in the plane, that were on that plane, but then there were also the people that were at the college that also need to be identified. This is just a grueling time, and I just want to sort of set the scene here. You know, this is the main hospital where many of the bodies were brought, and earlier today it was quite a scene. There were so many people that were coming, and it wasn't just family members and friends, but it was just people in the community. You have to understand that this is just such a horrific crash, and so many people were just overcome with grief that they wanted to be here to offer their support. People have been distributing water to people. They've been offering food. One man who operates a tea stall decided to close it down and just give out biscuits to all the people that have been working here. It's a time where the community here is really trying to come together as officials are trying to figure out exactly what happened.
Samira, thank you. Samira Hussain reporting there. Well, details of the plane's last moments and footage from the crash site are still emerging. BBC Verify's Merlin Thomas has been looking at what might have caused the crash.
The plane, a Boeing 7878 Dreamliner, takes off from Ahmedabad airport at 13:38 local time, bound for London Gatwick. Tracking website Flight Radar 24 shows the last location of flight tracking data at 625 feet altitude here. We showed experts the footage who say that the plane appears to be pitching up to try to gain altitude. And you can see its landing gear is down, when normally it would be retracted within 10 to 15 seconds of flight. The crash site and its aftermath is just over 1.5 kilometres from the end of the runway. The tail of the plane is lodged in a building here. It's part of the BJ Medical College. It's on the site of a hospital complex. At least 50 medical students have been taken to hospital.
We know where this is because we've matched these buildings and aftermath to publicly available photos from the scene.
The Dreamliner 7878 has been in operation with Air India since 2014. So what could be the possible cause?
For some reason, enough lift wasn't being generated to keep the aircraft climbing. That's usually associated with not enough thrust for some reason or another. But more than stating that would be to get into the realms of speculation.
Some experts told BBC Verify the plane's wing flaps didn't appear to be extended, which could be a factor which led to the crash. Others say the video quality makes it too hard to tell.
The investigators will certainly look at the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder to determine if those flaps and slats were not extended or whether they were, if it appeared to be an airplane issue or if it was a pilot issue and failure to set the flaps and slats when they should have.
Now, investigators will hope to find the black box amongst the wreckage to piece together what happened. Merlin Thomas, BBC News.
This is the first fatal accident involving a Boeing 787 passenger jet known as the Dreamliner. Nick Marsh, our transport correspondent, is here with me. And Nick, what sort of record does this type of aircraft have? What has Boeing said?
Well, until today, Rita, a very good record. The 787 Dreamliner is a mainstay, really, of this kind of intercontinental travel. I mean, it was only last month that Boeing was celebrating its billionth passenger on this type of aircraft, which just shows you, how popular and, how reliable it's been until now. The issue is that when you have news like this, you hear the word Boeing, you hear crash, you think of those fatal incidents in places like Indonesia, Ethiopia, where hundreds of people died. Now, that was Boeing's fault. That was faulty software, which was an issue, and that's what caused those planes to go down. Today is different. Firstly, because those incidents involved a different model, the 737 MAX. This is the 787, completely different. Secondly, and very importantly, as we've been hearing there in Merlin's report, we don't know what caused this crash. There's no suggestion at all that Boeing, the manufacturer, really is to blame at all. But in any case, it's Boeing again. Its name's being associated with bad news. They've been losing so much money recently, and this is going to be another challenge for the company.
OK, thank you very much. Nick Marsh there. Let's get a final word with our correspondent Yogita Lemai, who's in Ahmedabad. And Yogita, this is an accident with catastrophic consequences. What will happen in the next hours and days?
Well, for the next few hours, for the next few days, I think we're going to see the operation continue here. And I'm going to show you why again, just to try to give you a sense of the scale. So those burnt out buildings behind me, those are at least 500 meters from the crash site, because this plane, which had a full fuel tank, crashed. The flames that came in engulfed all of this. There are earth movers here on standby. The actual crash site is down this road. There are barricades here. We can't go further at the moment. But earlier today, we were able to get there. And it's basically this whole row of buildings which were set ablaze, which are completely charred. So this operation is going to take some time. There are expectations here that Prime Minister Narendra Modi might be visiting, although we don't have confirmation of that yet. This is his home state of Gujarat. But the biggest and most difficult questions, of course, for Air India. It's announced compensation for the victims, roughly £86,000 for the family of each person who was killed. But difficult questions about what happened on that aeroplane. And for a company that was trying to revamp its image, that was trying to say it's a modern, new, sleek Air India, it was privatized 3 years ago after being India's national carrier. This, what's happened today, is going to come as a deadly, crushing blow.
Thank you. Yogita Lemai there, reporting from Ahmedabad.